All right, everybody, I'm back. It's Adam Parkamenko. I'm filling in for Mary Trump today. Thank you all for those that were here yesterday that are back today. If you missed me yesterday, thanks. Hopefully this will be a little bit better. Either way, it's scrappy. I am here in Cary, North Carolina, where my son is competing in a swim competition all weekend. Donald spent the day fawning over Hungary's Viktor Orban, an authoritarian he clearly admires, while pretending everything in America is quote unquote more affordable under his leadership. Meanwhile, families are struggling, flights are grounded, as many of you know. I think up to 4,000 right now are delayed, and millions still don't know if they'll get food assistance this month. It's all lies, all chaos, and we've got the receipts. So as Mary says, let's jump in, let's dive in. I really do enjoy her opening music there. All right, so today, Donald, as we call him, because we do have at least one good Trump, and that is Mary, gave a press conference with Viktor Orban, the Prime Minister of Hungary. He'd normally be happy in a situation like this because he loves being around authoritarian rulers, seeing as he aspires to be one. But today, a shadow hung over the proceedings due to Tuesday's GOP election losses, or some big wins, as we had. And as I always say, Republicans don't win elections, Democrats lose them. In this case, we won them, and we won them big. Most people are blaming these defeats on the economic downturn driven by Donald's policies. He started the presser with his usual tactic, telling bold-faced lies. And since affordability has been singled out as the main reason for the Democratic victories, Donald spent the week talking about how affordable things are under his leadership. Now, he did some of this today. Let's take a look.
The whole series of pricing and costs, the groceries and everything else, it was a con job. It was a con job. Affordability, they call it, was a con job by the Democrats. The Democrats are good at a few things: cheating on elections and conning people with facts that aren't true. It was 25%. Walmart just announced it 2 days ago. 25% cheaper this year will be cheaper to have Thanksgiving than it was a year ago under Sleepy Joe Biden.
Yeah, and this guy will lie and gaslight anything. Now, Donald had more to say about this Walmart Thanksgiving meal deal, which ends up not being the rock solid example that he thinks it is. Let's take a look.
Energy costs are very low. Our general costs are very low. And I just saw that Walmart came out with a statement last night. They've done it for many years, that Thanksgiving this year will cost 25% less than Thanksgiving last year under Sleepy Joe Biden. So that's a big difference. That's a big difference. 25% less Thanksgiving. And I think that's a very good chart. They include everything that you need for Thanksgiving. So it's 25% less this year than it was last year. And that's true. That's emblematic of the rest of prices. Energy prices are way down from what they were last year. Inflation is almost non-existent. We have inflation down to a very low number.
I mean, look, as I hinted at before, things went off the rails when this Walmart Thanksgiving deal that we called into question here. Look, there's a reporter that points out to Donald that his calculations might be faulty. Take a look at this.
President, since you brought up the Walmart Thanksgiving meal, and it is cheaper, but it also contains less. As affordability,
well, I haven't heard that. You're telling me. Who are you with? Who are you with?
I'm with NBC News, sir.
Fake news. NBC. You're fake news. What a NBC's gone down the tubes along with most of the rest of them.
I mean, it's pretty comical here coming from a guy that literally everything is fake, whether it's the plastic around the White House or, his orange skin color. But look, the hits kept coming. And by hits, I mean lies. Here he is lying about prices being down from where they were last year.
They talked about that. They said, I don't want to talk about affordability. The reason I don't want to talk about affordability is because everybody knows that it's far less expensive under Trump than it was under Sleepy Joe Biden. And the prices are way down.
So two things. One, to go back to the former, he is bragging about a Thanksgiving dinner at Walmart being 25% cheaper, where literally it is a smaller meal at a time where families throughout this country, millions, I think 41 million Americans rely on SNAP. We've all seen the interviews. A number of them, this is all about dignity. They want to be able to invite their mother over for Thanksgiving or their neighbors and just be able to provide that meal. And they don't know if they're going to be able to do that this year. And he's bragging that these prices are down when really they're getting less food. But on the last piece, the affordability, bringing down prices, inflation was literally his biggest campaign promise, maybe next to releasing the Epstein files. And he totally lied about doing that. Now he's lying again, saying he has done it when he hasn't. Now, here is Donald saying he had nothing to do with the candidates he endorsed losing on Tuesday. He also gaslights the many millions of Americans who are watching their bills go up each month. Take a look.
If I watched that election, which I was not much involved in, I didn't support Virginia, the candidate, didn't do a lot of support for the other candidates. They asked me about Cuomo, and I said, well, it's a question, do you want a thug or do you want a communist? I mean, that was my response. So I wasn't involved in that stuff too much. But I will say this. If you look at affordability, which they campaigned on, they lied because they talked about, prices are up. No, prices are down under the Trump administration, and they're down substantially. Energy prices are down by 30, 35, 40%. Gasoline is way down. And the other big thing is inflation is way down. The biggest thing is inflation. The second biggest thing is energy. Energy is way down. And what's also down? Gasoline. Also, the biggest thing is inflation, and it's way down.
Now, as we all know, Mamdani is not a communist. However, the fact that Donald Trump just said, they said, do you want a communist or a thug? Well, Donald Trump endorsed Andrew Cuomo. So he went with the thug, and the other was just an incredible immigrant who came to America and a city in which, as mentioned last night, my father came through a newly reopened Ellis Island on a cargo ship. And, that Statue of Liberty symbolizes, who we all are. And now we've got one of those individuals leading the city. But again, Donald Trump, he says the quiet part out loud. He went with the thug while lying in general about these. Even if you look at Virginia in just the attorney general race, where we saw the ads running about the support that Donald Trump had offered the incumbent running at a time where there was a controversy around the Democrat, Jay Jones. I think Jay Jones, did something stupid, but who are they to try to suggest what standards there are nowadays? Jay Jones won statewide, the Democrat, and the individual who put that information out on Jay Jones lost her race in one of the 13 seats that have been flipped in the state house this year. So again, while prices are up under Donald's leadership, employment is way down. Today, Fox Business reported on the jobs outlook for the usually busy upcoming holiday season. Now, unfortunately, things aren't looking very jolly. And I know sometimes I have a little bit of a Pollyannish, kind of take on these things, or I seem like, it's a little comical, but this stuff isn't. And we have a lot of friends that are hurting. So let's take a look at this report here.
And it shows this year's holiday hiring will be, wait for it, it's going to be at the lowest level in 15 years, holiday hiring?
Correct. That comes from the National Retail Federation. They say retailers will hire between 265,000 and 365,000 seasonal employees for the holidays. That compares with a greater 442,000 last year. Why the slowdown? Well, the group says this is indicative of a softer job market, as well as companies being able to be more efficient because of artificial intelligence. But despite this, bad news, right?
I think, look, a number of us always realized we were going to lose jobs when it came to AI. And AI has its pros and has its cons. But at the same time, you can't replace the American worker. And when you look at the totality of all of the damage that Donald is doing throughout this country, whether we're talking about airports, this goes back again. I think we talked about this yesterday, but that terrible incident and tragic accident that happened. So many kids that lost their lives, figure skaters, when that American Airlines crash happened with a Army helicopter just after Donald Trump took office and had already started, having a terrible effect on air traffic controllers and so forth. We didn't see any of this under Pete Buttigieg, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and others. And we're seeing it all the time now. In Louisville, that accident, I mean, there's going to be an investigation and so forth. And who knows what kind of truth you can get out of this government nowadays. But, that involved a UPS carrier. And that came just days after UPS was talking about all the cuts that they have to make because of everything going on. UPS workers are some of the hardest in this country. They're unionized, and they're good people. So people are being affected all over the place. It's a disgrace, especially as we head into Thanksgiving, Christmas, and the New Year's, and all these other holidays that people are just trying to celebrate, that they've worked so hard for. And many of these individuals, they've put a couple decades in, and they're trying to get to a place where they're going to get their pension, and they're being treated as just completely worthless. And that's no surprise from Donald, but it's just him and his folks taking care of themselves as usual. Same thing with Kristi Noem. We can afford to get her 2 airplanes, and as Ben Meiselas pointed out earlier today, what is it, $22 trillion Donald Trump has claimed to have brought in? Where is that money? If he brought in $22 trillion, why are we fighting about paying SNAP? Is it because the money doesn't exist? Is it because he kept the money, or is it because he doesn't want to take care of the working poor throughout this country? Now, as Donald's government shutdown stretches on, so does the chaos and damage that's creating. Today, The Guardian reports that, and we're going to put this up, the Federal Aviation Administration has ordered significant cuts to commercial flights because of air traffic controllers are working without pay, leading to staffing shortages. Major airports, JFK. I mean, I don't have to tell you guys, JFK has problems when things are good. LAX, Atlanta, Dallas, Fort Worth, Miami, Chicago. I know the same thing back where I usually am. DCA and IAD have started reducing schedules. This morning, over 800 flights were canceled. At the time, when I saw that number on TV, it said 800. An hour later or so, it said, I think maybe around 900. And then before we jumped on, the number of flights delayed was not canceled, but delayed was over 4,000 just before we got on. Now, these cancellations are expected to rise roughly 15 to 20%. One of the reasons I drove down to North Carolina is because I don't want, if you're in a position to drive, I suggest that you do so. But also, if you have to fly somewhere, we're supposed to fly for my son's great grandfather's 90th birthday this week to Tampa. And we're trying to figure out what kind of plan do we need to get back? Because these are the things that are happening, right? He's been in the hospital. We may not see him and have him 2 weeks from now. And it's really important to be able to get out there and do that. But at the same time, what are the odds that we're going to have a flight back? I have no idea. And prominent airlines like United, Southwest, and Delta are already just dropping flights. By next week, the FAA plans to cut operations at 40 high traffic airports up to 10%. Now, this is not exactly, as we know, a transparent administration. They typically tell lies. So if they're telling us that they're going to cut 40 high traffic airports by 10%, I would imagine it's much higher than that, both the number of airports and the actual percentage. But we'll see. And there are some really great independent journalists out there that cover this stuff and as you all know, do wonderful FOIAs. These disruptions are spreading to international travel as well. Not shocking at all, as we're talking about places like IAD and JFK, and are reaching a boiling point just weeks before Thanksgiving. Meanwhile, the Friday shopping holidays and all that kind of stuff, these just don't exist anymore. It's not things that people can do. It's a very sad situation. And I'll just say this again. I said this during Halloween, when we had people coming over to get candy, we were recommending to anybody that could put stuff out. If you non-perishable items, if you have a food bank in your area, or you know of one, or you have things that you're getting rid of, do whatever you can to donate those and try to help a family out right now. Yesterday, a federal judge in Rhode Island ordered that the Trump regime, Donald regime, to fully fund the SNAP program through November. But now NBC News reports that earlier today, lawyers for the Trump regime requested an emergency pause on that order in a federal appeals court. In a court filing, they argued that they only had access to enough money to provide partial funding due to the ongoing government shutdown. But since that filing, additional news has come out. The NBC piece says, quote, in a memo obtained by NBC News, Patrick Penn, the Deputy Undersecretary of the FDA, which is the Food Nutrition, Food Nutrition Consumer Services, informed states that the USDA will complete the processes necessary to fully issue SNAP benefits for the time being. The funds could be available later Friday, the memo said. So SNAP lost funding officially on October 1st due to the government shutdown, which puts us at 31 plus 7. Today is day 38 of the government shutdown. States sued the Trump regime to restore the funding, and 2 federal judges ordered them to do just that. Then the regime asked for a delay on that order. Then another corner of the administration said something along the lines of, yeah, we'll do it. That's a lot to take in. It still remains to be seen whether the Trump regime will adhere to this court order and fully fund SNAP through November. What we were hearing prior to this show was that allegedly they are getting these funds out while the appeal is taking place, kind of like we just talked about. And some states have started issuing these SNAP funds, but these families need this today. In the meantime, 42 million people, they're worried about whether they'll be able to afford to eat this month in the richest country of the world. But look, it's not enough to just starve people. This administration is also out to poison our air, as you all know. Now, the Associated Press reports that, and we'll put this up, the Trump regime is moving to loosen rules that limit, I'm going to totally screw this up, hydrofluorocarbons or HFCs. You guys are a lot smarter than me on this one. These are climate warming pollutants used in refrigerators and air conditioners. That's when you get a refrigerator, that's sideways and you got to stand it up and let it sit for 2-3 days before plugging it in, right? A bipartisan law was put into place seeking to phase out these materials. It's called the American Innovation and Manufacturing Act, and it was signed by Donald himself in 2020. Now, just want to pause there. Every time I am talking about something that he actually did himself, it's like when he talks about how Joe Biden put a couple hundred FBI agents in the crowd on January 6th, except Donald Trump was president on January 6th, right? All right. So, but now the EPA, led by Lee Zeldin, argues that the current rules are bad for business. He cites complaints from grocery chains and AC companies about high-cost material shortages and constructive compliance deadlines. Again, this is the same group of people that had no problem tearing down the East Wing before talking about the fact that you only, quote unquote, would need a permit to build. Zeldin, and I'm referring to that because of the asbestos, Zeldin says the rollback of these regulations will make American refrigerants affordable, safe, and reliable again. Now, food industry groups and refrigerant suppliers have praised the new proposal. However, many companies and environmental groups warn that neutering this rule will increase climate pollutant, disrupt planning, and raise costs for consumers, all of which sounds very feasible and normal if you actually listen to experts. Same thing with the East Wing. I think ABC News called them critics as opposed to experts, warning what was going in the air after they started tearing down the East Wing. Industry groups also point out that manufacturers have already adjusted products and supply chains to comply with the original schedule. Delaying these changes could create confusion and give an advantage to foreign companies that didn't invest in clean technology. So, in other words, Donald lied when he said his policies would be America first. Is anybody shocked? Now, with that, I know this is something that Mary's doing and a number of folks sitting in have been doing. We've reached today's emotional support moment, which is one of my favorite moments. Tonight, we thought we'd bask in the fall season, which is pretty exciting. There's some beautiful trees down here in Cary, North Carolina. Enjoy a nice, well-deserved quiet moment, just some autumn leaves falling and the world slowing down a bit. And then after this, we're going to take some questions, and I want to thank some folks. It's actually very calming. I like that. Although I didn't get a lot of sleep last night, so I feel like a couple more minutes of that could have put me to sleep. Lexi, I'm going to steal that video afterwards from you. So any questions, comments, concerns? Pamela, thank you for becoming a YouTube member. We really appreciate it. And thank you guys, everybody, for stepping up and doing whatever you can. Norm Reitzel became a YouTube member. Norm, thank you so much for supporting Mary. ECM 958. If we had no electoral college, would Republicans ever gain control of any of the three branches of government? I mean, and it's a great question. I don't think so. One thing that I heard sort of interesting on the call the other day, I may have even mentioned this yesterday, is in Texas, I actually believe, just from talking to a number of folks in the state in recent weeks, I do believe there are more Democrats in Texas and voters that that support our candidates than there are Republicans. And a lot of people will be quick to say, then why can't we win statewide? But one of the biggest things is because Republicans have gerrymandered the state the way that they have, they've worked really hard in coordination at all levels to remove in upwards of 700 plus polling locations and make it harder for people to vote. So there's a number of people that just are not able to get out there and vote, and we got a lot of work to do. But I do think that the Electoral College should have gone a long time ago. I mean, whether it's Al Gore or Hillary Clinton, you name it. We've seen too many elections where someone is elected or someone gets the most votes to become president of the United States and does not become president of the United States. Dorothy Reed, thank you for supporting Mary Trump with a membership there. Midas Cheryl, we love the Midas team. Thank you for supporting Mary Trump Media. It's good to see you, Cheryl. Susan, it wouldn't be a show without Susan, one of the best moderators in the history of moderators. Thank you for all you do for Mary. And Susan says, please donate to your local food pantry and food bank. Volunteer if you can. Whatever you can do. I totally agree in terms of what Susan said. For years, I spent a lot of time. We actually called it the tampon tree. And what we did was we got contributions in the form of tampons and other necessities, of which, obviously in many states are taxed and shouldn't be taxed, and other products that were needed. And we gave those out to women and girls shelters. There's a number of different ways you can get involved. But right now, with everything going on with SNAP, anything you can do to take Susan's advice there would be greatly appreciated. Martha Salinas, also Trump's administration want to destroy America's national parks. Totally. And, one thing that they have stressed throughout the Trump regime, the Donald regime has stressed throughout the 38-day shutdown is that, quote unquote, parks are open. But as we've seen in previous shutdowns, even when parks are closed, what you get is you get a lot of people going there and they're either trying to do bad things or they're trying to enjoy it and they risk their life. So there ends up being somebody who, falls off a cliff or falls down a hole and needs some life-saving stuff. But there's also people that are going in there and they're stealing things from these landmarks, and they're, whether it's plants or other things like that. So there's all sorts of terrible things that are going on right now on the national park. But not just that, obviously, they want to take a lot of that land and turn it into other things that they shouldn't. Michael Easterwood, why do the rich in our government care about whether we eat or not? They're all fat and sassy Christian values. Jesus fed the less fortunate, but these Christians starved them. There's a whole lot of projection going on, right? I mean, this is talking about this party, the party that allegedly the Republican Party wants. They're not supposed to be. They want to convince us, and they've tried to convince us that they own the American flag, that they are the party of family values, that they are the party that protect children, that they are the party that feed the poor, and so forth. They are just the opposite, and they have advertised that every which way they can. And I just, when you kind of see this 38% that sticks with Donald Trump, I think at some point we all just have to accept and acknowledge I think many watching have long ago that we're never going to get through to that 38%. But what's important there is that our party from the top down stops wasting money trying to reaching out to those voters, right? Like, they're not going to vote for us. I'd rather see that money go to a food bank than try to convince one of the 38% to come around. Mission RD 100. Trump thinks American air is cleaner than other countries are. I don't know why, but this reminds me of when he put up, I thought it was just one, turns out to be two of those terribly tacky giant American flags at the White House. And he stood there and he said, I believe this is, many people are saying that this is the world's largest American flag. And everyone's like, have you ever visited, a Camping World? Or anyways, on my drive down to North Carolina, I saw many flags outside those RV sales places that are far bigger than the one in the White House. This guy is just kind of full of shit all around. And Lyons, no one should go hungry in America. Totally agree. While the freaks are having a Gatsby party with the strippers literally at Mar-a-Lago, gorging themselves on it, on decadent food. Someone made the comment, we don't even know if that was a Halloween party, right? With those giant champagne glasses and dancers and stuff. It's true. It could just be another night at Mar-a-Lago. And before I forget, talking about that, same thing, right? He's spending all this money. It's not real gold, but like the amount of time, energy, and money that he's putting in to put all this bullshit up in the paper outside of the White House, where it looks like it's paper signs, but a bunch of people have mentioned that's kind of typical when someone has dementia. You start to put up signs like the Oval Office, right? So they know that's the Oval Office in case that they forgot. It's just incredible the amount of resources this country's wasting, even down to 3 sheets of paper. Unturned stone. Anyone seen a $2? I haven't. It was I want to say it was 98 cents my senior year, but it's been a while since I've seen it at $1.98. But maybe in the comments if you have. Gene, let's see. Question: what is happening with the Epstein file, Maxwell, Andrew files? I mean, look, this all comes down to a couple months ago. Mike Johnson said that he thought anybody that was involved with Epstein and the trafficking of women and girls should spend the rest of their life behind bars. And then he spent the entire fall closing down the government to do everything he can to stop the Epstein files from coming out, because we now have 218 votes when you include Congresswoman-elect Grijalva, who took her late father Raul Grijalva's seat after she won that election. We have the votes. I think there's going to be a lot more votes. But this is the longest someone has gone. This is the longest shutdown and the longest someone has gone without being seated. She's a duly elected member. It is insane. Kind of reminds me of like the craziness that is Marjorie Taylor Greene. She thinks she can play everybody right now. She can't. We're not going to buy it. But if that means that she's going to create some chaos for Mike Johnson, or as we call him, Little Johnson, in the process, I'm all for it. But this thing is, as a number of people, Brian Karam, is on here a lot. Waj, I think they're all referring to Donald now as basically a cornered New York City rat, and that's where we're at. Like, they called him Teflon Don for how long? This is the thing that sticks, and it's a little strange that she's a terrible person. I'm not defending where she is, but it's a little strange, right? That the only person that is sitting behind bars right now is a woman who should be behind bars. But where are all the men that were involved? In the middle of nowhere. That's kind of how I feel where I am right now. Thank you for supporting Mary Trump with that membership. Susan's back. Susan, thank you. Fun question. How is your son? Okay, so my son Cameron is an incredible swimmer. And it's going really well. This is one of those ones where they compete a bunch of times in the morning. And if they get in that sort of top 8, 16, 20, 24 for the heats, then they compete in the finals every night. So this was day one. He swam twice this morning. He made the finals for both. So we will be at those soon, and he's been awesome, and he placed first this morning. So I'm really excited to see what happens tonight. Thank you, Susan, for asking. Donna McMullen, thank you for supporting Mary. Thank you. I'll fill in for her anytime, although I don't know that I always make it easy for Lexi. I cannot believe Donald's talking about affordability. Yeah. He's never had to pay for anything. Yeah. Nothing. I mean, and that's the thing, and what he does is he goes after people. It doesn't matter who they are, right? For their money or what's important to them. He went after Mary for her inheritance. He was a slumlord. He kicked people out of buildings and lied. And he's one of the only people in the world that could run a casino and lose. Agatha, mystery volunteer, super sticker. Thank you for supporting Mary, and beautiful dog. I miss my dogs. Susan, government shutdown. Thank you again for supporting Mary. The Epstein files cover up. Adam, do you believe we'll ever see them? It's a great question. I think what's interesting, Susan, and by the way, that's a little bit of a battery out there. What's interesting to me is if they spent this much time, the Trump campaign and Donald Trump, promising to release the Epstein files, only not to do so, what are we led to believe? That they're doing everything they can, the Republicans and Donald Trump, to protect Bill Clinton and Bill Gates? Like, that's just not true. And I've said, somebody who worked with the Clintons for 15 years, I don't care who's on the list. The list should be released. And if you're on the list, you should pay the price. And nothing that happened to those women and girls are acceptable. They're not only victims, some of them are no longer here with us, but they are re-victimized every single time their name or their story is out there, or he is out there, or a letter they provided to the court for the future if somebody's going to be convicted is read. I used to work at the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children for 3 years, and it's not an easy thing. And it takes a lot for these folks not only to come forward, but to be part of the process to ensure that these people are put away. So I believe there will be more, and I do think there's a lot more votes in Congress. And I think the simple fact that you have Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie partnering to lead this just seems to be the one thing that can't go away. And they're all over the map. And not to beat a dead horse here, but the fact that they were announcing they were releasing the list, and Pam Bondi was involved, and then she wouldn't even give answers when testifying. And then Kash Patel was saying that the only person that ever trafficked in women and girls was Jeffrey Epstein, but meanwhile Maxwell is behind bars. It's creating a bit of a civil war within their party. So I think it's gonna come to a head here whenever Congress comes back in, because we're gonna have another member sworn in, and we'll have that number 218. LV girl loves pups. I love pups too. Which one of the reporters would ask Trump, when was the last time you were in a grocery store? Yeah, these reporters, I mean, they basically are a fan club. This is not, the days of, the folks that we remember, right? Peter Jennings, until I finally went to college, I thought it was really cool that Peter Jennings had a high school degree and did such a great job at doing what he did. There's not a lot of people. And interestingly, not that I always agree with them, but some of the reporters that have stepped up have interesting backgrounds. Like Caitlin Collins was with a conservative, rag outlet before CNN, and she's one of the few people that seems to be able to often ask these questions. But same thing with Abby Phillips and others. But as we see, when they're often around the president, they quickly get removed and pushed out, as we're seeing at the Pentagon right now as well. Roll. MTG doing best impression of a human being lately. Whoever has been a MAGA should disappear from politics. Yeah, and I think that I think she sees the writing on the wall in terms of Epstein and also Trump's health. The only reason she came out and said anything about healthcare was because it affected her daughter. She's been hearing from people for 5 years. The first time she listened was when her daughter reached out to her. She's a total fraud, but I expect that she plans on running in 2028. 2 casinos, which is hard. Yeah, 2 casinos. That's true. Lord Savior, your local humane society will accept pet food. That is such a good one. Yeah, that's a great idea. And take a look in the closet, see if there's stuff that you have and look at the expiration dates, whatever that might be. And when it comes to pets, and there might be some stuff that your pets don't like anymore that's sitting there that's good. So please donate that stuff. CBB, another thing, if you know a family who is struggling, you can order groceries online and gift for direct delivery to them. Might not have gas money either. Yeah, that's all a great point. And if you know someone in need of gas, I hate to do an advertisement for big fuel here, but you can go into a Shell, and get a $25 gift card or wherever you want to do that and hand those out to people. Disabled and seniors can't stand in food lines. We can help them with that. Yeah. And we got to help people however we can, food lines, voting, if you know somebody, who might not be planning on voting in an election because they make it so hard for them to actually do that, do whatever you can to help them in that process. Thank you, Susan. I will follow up in all the comments tonight as well. I'm going to get ready to go see Cameron swim, but you guys are incredible. You just really have built a wonderful platform to work with Mary. And I see so many of you on other platforms, and I appreciate the opportunity to fill in. And I'll see what you guys are all saying after this in between Cam's swim meet. But in the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. And thank you for all you do.